I am Leona Thomas, and I'm going to share a little bit of what it was like for me growing up Black in America and how it is still today, being a Black woman in America. So for me, I grew up in a small town, and it was predominantly Caucasian. I remember about 5 or 6 years old, maybe I think it was like 6 or 7 years old. We moved into this town, and the whole neighborhood, like everybody was Caucasian in the neighborhood. But luckily for us, my mother, who was born and raised in Harlem, New York, she knew no strangers. So she got out there, started talking to neighbors, and finding out if there was any kids around our ages, and just finding out information. Where's the school? How do I get my kids signed up for the school? So on and so forth. So there was one girl I used to play with all the time. She lived a couple doors down from us. She was nice. She was real nice. Her family was nice, but there was always times where, kids can remind you of who you are and that you don't belong and you are different. But at that time, when I was younger, I didn't realize that, different is good. It's okay to be different, But as I grew older, and I was in elementary school. Elementary school was kind of rough for me. I remember elementary school being rough. I remember middle school being kind of rough. I remember when I was in elementary school, there was another Black girl, and I remember when she moved, that was crucial. I was like, oh my God, she moved. Like, there's nobody else here now. Like, and I just always remember just hoping that she would move back, or either I would see her again, but never saw her again, never crossed paths. There's even times where I even try to Facebook her now just to see if I could reach out to her. But for me, I just remember it being rough in elementary school, like, because kids can be mean. I remember it being rough in middle school, but as I started getting into high school, it started getting a little better. But for middle school wise, I remember going down to the lunch line. This stands out very strongly. I remember going down to the lunch line, and when I would stand in line, there would be kids that would chant the N-word. Like, there was 2 boys. I will never forget their faces. I would stand there in a line, and they would just chant in the N-word over and over. Teachers were there. Teachers never did anything. They never corrected them, never said anything. And I was just glad to be out of middle school once that was done. That was over. And then as I got older, I started to realize, this is taught, like, this is hateful. This is taught within the 4 walls of your household and where you are raised. And I started to realize, okay, the conversations that's happening within my household that I grew up in is totally different than the conversations that are happening within other kids' households. And that's why the responses are different. That's why the reactions are, how I'm treated is differently, So I'm also a mom of 2 African American young men. And I remember when it was time for my oldest to get his driver's license, it was a moment of excitement at first, like yes, I'm so glad, because it was like it's a milestone in a child's life once they receive their license, and so on and so forth. And they start driving, and they get a little bit of their freedom, and I don't have to drive you to all the practices. Woo, thank God. I don't have to drive you to work now. Woo, you could drive yourself. But there's also as soon as that celebration happens, it's stopped, because you comes to the realization of, okay, my child is going to eventually get stopped by the police, and you have to teach your child, you get to teach your sons, your daughters, how do you respond as a black and American, or as a black person in America, how you're going to respond to these police officers that do stop you, It's just a natural conversation that happens, within an African American home. It has to happen because of the things that happen within our country, So with that comes with the worry of it, that celebration is short lived, and outside of worrying about car accidents, that happens, but racial profiling happens on the regular basis. Like, my son was stopped on the regular basis just going to church. He's like, I'm going to church. Where are you going to? I'm going to church. Like, and it got to the point where I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to drive you to church. Like, you need to be ready when I'm ready to go to church. So it was stuff like that. But I'm just glad that these conversations are starting to happen, and not just happening that, even if there's awkwardness during these conversations, it's a good thing. Awkwardness is a good thing. People always shy away from awkwardness. And the way I can explain awkwardness is like this. Do you remember being a teenager and feeling awkward because you were growing into your childlike self was growing into a teenager, and things were developing, but the awkwardness was causing growth. So it's okay. Feel awkward in a conversation. Listen to the conversation. And that's fine. Like I said, with awkwardness, there's growth, and you don't even realize what you could be teaching someone else, what they don't even know, or what, you don't even know.